Hi guys, welcome back to Take 5 with Pretty Nerdy. Indie Spotlight is back and we are doing something different this time. I have never reviewed a manga. I've never reviewed a manga before, but this time around we have Black Spartans, chapters 1 and 2 from Dark Moon Manga. It's written and created by Brandon Calloway. Art and letters are by Macchiato Studios, and the editor is Emilio Caldwell. Now, manga is something I don't have a whole lot of experience in. It's not something I gravitate towards. So for that reason, I have like 4 pages of notes that I took while reading this because I wanted to make sure I really had a good grasp on what we were looking at. Now, I just want to mention you can find them on Instagram and Facebook, and chapter 3 is actually live on Kickstarter right now. I will put all of that in the show notes so you can find where to find them. Now, with my limited knowledge of manga, from what I understand, you read it backwards, like it's supposed to be this way instead of this way. And now with these books, that's not the case. These books are written in like traditional comic format, which I think worked better for me because that's what I'm used to. So for this being like my introduction into manga, it was a little easier to digest for that reason. So on the back of chapter 1, there's a little synopsis that just says, our heroes Balbino, Dayanita, and Amara are on a journey to build the strongest hunter guild of all time. But unbeknownst to them, the demonic Oni are plotting to make their move and take back what they believe to be their rightful place as the true dominant race of the world. By seeking out and resurrecting the 4 great demons, the Oni intend to tip the balance of power back in their favor. The first thing that I noticed that I loved about this book, and I love it when indie creators do that, is they put a little personal note on the inside, and Brandon mentions that this is 3 years in the making, so this is his baby. A lot went into this. So the basis of the story is there's a kingdom or an area called Listeria, which I thought was kind of funny because a big plot point is like there's a bunch of creatures trying to eat humans, and Listeria is like eating bacteria, so that was kind of humorous to me. So there's 6 kingdoms, and the people that live in the kingdoms are safe, and then everybody else who's outside of the kingdoms are kind of fighting for their lives. There's dragons and Onis and all these other human-eating creatures, and there are hunters guilds, which are people who have weapons that are manifestations of their spirit guides, and they kind of play a role of protecting the underprivileged who do not live in the kingdoms, but it's not really like an altruistic thing necessarily. Like these people are getting fame and fortune and, you know, status, and they're getting paid for their services. However, it's almost like a hazard pay type situation because, I mean, they're like more often than not getting murdered by dragons and stuff. So the first chapter is about a young hunter who, it's his first day on the job. He just left a poor village. He ends up at another poor village and is seeking to handle a creature issue for them. And they kind of determine that he's brand new at this and he doesn't have a guild yet. So he's just kind of like going in there hoping for the best type situation. It turns out okay. He achieves his mission. He moves on to the next village. My first notes on this book was that there was some creative liberties in the art that I found a little bit off-putting with. So they make some changes to the art style throughout the story that I think is meant to express like different emotions, but it kind of disjoints the story in a way. And you know, I'm a big fan of creative use of panels, how we break up panels and use them differently. There was a couple spots where the panels were broken up in a way that just it felt more unnecessary, I guess, than creative. The story itself was really straightforward. The dialogue was really straightforward, and it left off at a place that kind of left it wide open to, you know, branch off anywhere the story wanted to go. I liked this a lot, and it was something that I think made it very readable for a lot of people. I do feel that there could have been a little bit more origin and a little bit more character development. Maybe it was a little bit more open-ended than it needed to be. And then I picked up chapter 2, and you can literally you look at chapter 1 and then you look at chapter 2, and even just the covers, you leveled up. Like this creator, you know, they started off with their 1, they learned from their mistakes, they took their criticism, and they moved into chapter 2, and the art is so clean, so streamlined. The dialogue is a lot more meaningful and full. There's a better use of character introductions and a lot of character development where there wasn't so much in issue 1. So this really does feel like a large improvement and a launching off point. So the chapter 2 was very different than chapter 1, and it really definitely built on those open spaces that chapter 1 left. The only thing on chapter 2 that kind of detracted for me, I guess, in a way, is because I'm a graphic designer, I notice silly things like this, but like, in the first page, they have like words that they split off on 2 lines instead of just like moving the word to the next line. And I think it just diminishes from the professionalism a little bit. It doesn't bother some people, but it's just one of those things that I look for because it was beaten into me in college. Like, you can't do stuff like that. The second chapter starts off with 2 different demon leaders kind of negotiating, possibly partnering. So I liked that it jumped right to that, and it kind of focused on the other side of the story right out the gate and kind of gave you a glimpse of what's going on that end of things. After that, the story jumps to the warrior from the first chapter, and he's moved on to this other village, and he gets there and he kind of gets the same response out of the gate where it's like, oh, it's just you, and you're young and you're new. And then they were also surprised that like anybody responded to their request for help, because it was like a low-paying, undesirable job, and he just showed up all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go. And at first they mutually were like, but then, somebody from within the village said, let's, give him a chance and let me assess his skills. During this trial period, I guess he also learns that not everybody sees having that spirit guide weapon as a blessing. A lot of people, according to this other person he's speaking to, see it very differently than that. And so he's happy to know that like a lot of people in his village don't have this because they don't have to deal with the burdens of it. So I don't want to spoil too much of the story, but so I'm gonna just go with, in that situation, the warrior kind of learns not to be so cocky, that he needs to maybe not be so careless. And at the end of it, he ends up with his first real ally in the story. So I think when you pick up chapter 3, we're going to see a lot more of, this original warrior, Balbino, and then his new ally, and probably see a lot more character development as well. So rating wise, keep in mind, I don't manga much. So this isn't something that I would have just gone and picked up off the shelf on my own. So I'm really rating this from the standpoint of somebody who doesn't have a lot to compare it against. And I'm more focusing just on like the story structure and the art and the development and things like that. So if you had just given me chapter 1 by itself, I would have probably leaned closer to a 6, just because I feel like there was a lot more that could have been added to the plot and the story, and kind of give a little bit more origin and things like that. The dialogue also just kind of got generic at some parts, I guess. There wasn't a lot of like meaningfulness to it. But when you move on to chapter 2 and you include that in the rating, and you look at how the story developed, and you look at how it's evolved and all the work that's been put into really making it a strong story, I would give it closer to an 8. And I bet that, when chapter 3 comes out, we're going to be a 9 or a 10, because this creator is one of those rare creators that says, yes, okay, I see that. Let me build on that. Let me work on that. Nobody's going to be perfect on their first shot. That's not how this works. So I was really excited when I picked up chapter 2 and I saw the things that I wanted to complain about in chapter 1 were no longer there in chapter 2. So that's a sign of like a really good, developing, evolving creation. I have no idea what happened to my last video. It was corrupt. So I just wanted to say thank you again for sending these books over. I'm going to put in the show notes again where you can find these, where you can find them on Instagram, where you can get chapter 3 on Kickstarter and all of that. Thanks for coming back. We're going to keep doing Indie Spotlight again, guys. So if you have any, of your own creations you want to send over, or something a friend did, or just something you're in love with right now, send it over to me. Okay? Bye.